Mm.
That thing that got he waited good until we started asking questions.
Dang.
Go ahead, Fahim. You want to do the opening? Go ahead, bro.
This your channel, bro. I'm just out here chilling, man. But you already know what it is, man. It's that time of week again, man. Word of mouth out here, man. We are introducing everybody. First up, we got Denzel DZ Smalls out here. We got Jay Puma Jarvis, and then we got my boy Herbo. Herb with the what is this? Just an H? Yeah, internet trash, so he can't get the video. But today, what we're talking about, let him know.
That was actually pretty good. Like I could never be that animated. Like that's just not my thing. Like
I feel you, bro. I feel you.
All that, but that's never my thing. But all right, like and subscribe to the channel. We're just gonna go with that intro right there. A lot of high energy, all motivated and shit. Huh?
Yeah.
So today's topic is what makes a marriage successful. Whereas all of us are not married, some of us are getting married.
Some of us are already married.
Derek couldn't join us this week. Another one's getting married. He's actually in, what is it, couples counseling, premarital counseling. So, he can tell us about that next week. But all of us come from two-parent homes. So, I think we all have a good perspective on what it is. I am group home on being married. Herb is getting married. Jarvis is probably going to be single for the rest of his life. But,
Herb is
the king got a date coming up. So, he'll probably be married right here in a year and a half, too.
Nah. Not that I saw what happened to you, boy. Ain't never getting married. That's what you talking about.
All right, let's get into it. So let's start with Jarvis. I feel like Jarvis got the best take on this. I feel like he'll have the best take on it, like just seeing his parents and whatnot. So what is something or things you think are key to successful marriage? You lost a lot of weight, bro. Just on the side, you lost a lot of weight. You see your face and your head and all that.
Like, I guess it was because they were both good Christian people. Like, they're nice Southern Christian blacks. Like, they went to church every Sunday. They sent me to church every Sunday. A lot of their relationship was based on, like, being God-fearing people. So I guess it's like one of those cliche things where they just gave a lot of their problems up to the Lord and they worked through them. Well, I really don't know. Like, they were together for all of my life, and I'm 30. So
you don't have anything beyond that?
I really don't. Like, I really don't. I don't analyze people's marriages because I know each one is different. Like, what goes on behind the closed marriage bedroom is like between those two people. So, like, my parents worked things out. So I was like, oh, well, good for them. So I didn't ask any questions because I had no reason to ask a question. It was one of those things where if they had a problem, they kept it between themselves. So I was just an ignorant child completely. So, like, I had no question for my parents' marriage. I'm just, all right, I guess that's how things are supposed to happen. And when they don't, I understand that that's their marriage.
That's valid. All right, what about you, Green Block?
You come to me last.
What?
Okay, Green Block. Team the King. What's your idea and take on it?
I mean, I don't agree with how marriage is set up today, but if you looked at it from the perspective of what my parents went through, they were with each other since high school, as high school sweethearts. You know what I'm saying? And then in terms of how the marriage was based, what they formed was more or less a partnership first, and then the love came secondary, according to how they explained it to me. I think they just did that because I was much younger and my mom didn't want to tell me that my dad was doing what he was doing to her, But in any case, what they did in order to maintain such a successful marriage is first get the finances within order, a lot of the problems that I see with a lot of relationships has to do with financial instability, insecurity, or just mistrust overall. What they did was be completely open with all of their finances and made sure that there was always food on the table and always the rent paid, always having all of the bills paid and things of that nature. After that, that's when we were more or less born, me and my brothers. And I guess I'm in the same type of boat that Jarvis is in. Whenever they had a problem, they solved it between themselves. We were never really exposed to the type of problems that they had within their relationship. And I never seen any problems outwardly in terms of yelling, in terms of physical violence or anything like that. So I think really the basis for a good marriage is first develop a partnership where you understand what each person's overall utility is in the relationship, because that's what you're going to have to fall back on when sometimes you just don't feel like loving that person that day. At the end of the day, you have to have some type of basis that you can fall back on. I think that's what is most important. But my views are clouded because I don't believe in it. So it is what it is, man. That's all I have on it.
We'll get to the whole futuristic aspect of it later. But Herb, go ahead and give us your philosophy right here. Philosopher Herb, Confucius Herb in the building. G Herbo Confucius.
Socrates actually biased to y'all. Anyway, so my thoughts on just marriage in general. So I'm married, and one thing I realized, once me and my wife got married, and as we got closer to marriage, is that it takes a village to sustain a marriage. So kind of like
because a little because you're like really far away.
Hold on. Let me try to fix this real quick. My bad. You can just edit this part out. All right, can you hear me now?
Good.
All right. So, in terms of just marriage in general, right? And what makes, I think, a successful marriage. So I'm married, and one thing I can say that has helped me along is that it takes a village, right? So for me, I come from a 2-parent household, and I come from generations of marriage. And one thing that both sides, both me and my wife families, have made open is that if you guys have issues, you can come to talk to us. But they have made it to basically where it's like they don't pick a side, nor do they give you the answer. They just give you overall advice and guidance, but it's ultimately up to you two to still work it out. But to still have that reliable village of, married couples that have been together 20, 30, 40 plus years that you can rely on when you have issues or problems, because 9 times out of 10, they've either been through it and they probably have some insight about how to get through it. But I can say for us, they give advice without giving answers. It's up to you two to figure out the answers, and they don't pick sides. In terms of kind of like Jarvis and Fahim said, growing up, my parents really didn't show any relationship problems until we honestly got older and we were able to actually understand them. So when we did have issues, when we got older, I mean like adults in our early 20s, they would then like break it down, reason why. But I think a lot of people in today's age doesn't understand that marriage requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of sacrifice and a lot of commitment and duty.
I do have a question for you, just to cut you off for a minute.
What's up?
Just an example of, I've always heard to keep family out of the marriage because it keeps people unbiased. So that hasn't been an issue in your marriage?
No, because they told us up front, and typically when we have problems, we don't go to just one side. We typically bring both sides together, and they generally give the same advice. But that's just how the relationship in our family is. It's like when it comes to giving marriage advice, they give it to you separate. But my thing is this: why are you keeping family out of your marriage when? And again, it also boils down to who you're talking to. And me, I'm talking to my mom, but we're talking to our moms and our dads and our grandparents. We're not talking to cousin Sally Sue over there. At the end of, to me, at the end of the day, it's right. if you have the resources, if you have people that have been married 20, 30, 40 years, why not try to rely on them and get some type of advice? Because as much as people want to say dating and engagement is the same as marriage, it's not. You know, once you sign those papers and say I do, it is a completely it is a different it is a completely new ball game. And you're navigating some different spaces. I think for me the biggest thing was realizing that I had to make decisions not only with me in mind, but also with my wife in mind as well, and looking at how those decisions impact us as a family unit, right? But in general, marriage is a lot of work. And I think a lot of people, they get caught up. Like for me, I never really, you ask my wife, I just had a wedding because I knew that was something she really wanted. But for me, I didn't really care about the wedding. You know, one thing I cared about and what both of our parents had preached to us was worry about what takes place the day after the wedding, where all the pomp, the circumstance is gone, the dresses are gone, and all the emotions are gone, because that's when the real battle starts. So for me, it was never looking like, I think a lot of people get caught up in the pomp and circumstance of the actual wedding day, but don't actually plan for, okay, what happens the day afterwards? And am I truly prepared for that? Because to be honest, some days you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna like your partner. Some days you're gonna wake up and you're gonna love them. But you know, it has to be more than love that's holding the fabric of that marriage together. And for one of the things we did is, you know, we're a very Christian household. So whenever we do make any decisions, the first thing we do is we lean not on our own understanding, but on God's understanding first before we do anything. And we try to definitely put God first in our marriage before we go about making any decisions and things of that nature. But, you know, it's not pretty. It's a lot of work. But at the end, you know, I'll take being married any day. And that's just me.
He gave the whole, well, all of you really gave that kind of whole, the political thing. I'm going to give it pretty much the quick and dirty. I think you got to ask somebody who gives a fuck. As simple as that thing, you gotta have somebody who gives a fuck outside of themselves. And I think that's the hardest part. And Fahim, you're probably touched on this anymore. I think everybody lives in such a singularity. That's like I think that's one of the hardest parts about being married now too, because everybody gets a participation trophy. And because everybody gets the participation trophy, they don't know what it feels like to put in hard work or lose or having to change or alter everything, because everybody gets the participation trophy, so everybody feels like they're right. In the end, if I'm making sense, like in as what Herb likes to call me, Greek philosopher way, it's like if everybody's getting a participation trophy, everybody's right.
Yeah.
But everybody can't in all those type of situations. You know what I'm saying? Somebody has to take the back corner, or like what Chris Rock said, somebody has to get the tambourine playing in some situations. And like I said from the beginning, you have to give a fuck about more than just yourself. And you have to think of things in a holistic way. And I think that's the biggest issue, that people don't think about it in a holistic way. A lot of people think about things in a singular way. Like, how does this benefit me? How does this work out for me? And I think this is why Fahim is kind of straight away from the idea of marriage. So I can touch more on it as well too, especially on the financial aspect of it.
You know, kind of speaking also on what you said, I'll say one thing that my father-in-law said to me when I actually, because I actually, you know, went to my wife's parents and asked for her hand in marriage. And, you know, one of the things that they preached to me is ensuring the partner that you're with is equally yoked with you. And I think a lot of us, like especially today, we don't touch on how important it is to be equally yoked with somebody.
Yep. that's one thing that like is preached in my family in relationships just in general. Like if they see you're trying to get serious with somebody, they're like, make sure you are equally yoked with that person. And it differs from person to person, but you got to know what that is for you and what that carries. Like to be
But what
yoked
does
is
it
to
mean
carry a
to
certain
be
amount of
yoked?
weight.
What does it mean to be equally yoked? And
Like a
everybody just,
yoke is one of
or
those things you used to put
hold
over an
on.
ox to carry a weight.
My bad. Thank you for joining us, Dora, for the first time this week. Brody, even though your last name.
Super late. I'm sorry. Super late though. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
didn't want to cut you off, Jarvis, but go ahead. What you're saying? Because what does it mean to be equally yoked?
But a yoke is like a weight. It's like a tool that you would use to carry weight for an animal. So both sides have to be equal for the oxen to move forward. So it has to be equally yoked. That means you're carrying a certain weight, a certain burden. And so that means you have to find somebody who's going to help you carry that same weight, that same burden. But that also means you're going to have to take on that other person's weight, that other person's burden, and you're going to have to do it just as much as they're doing it for you. So to be equally yoked is to be two different things, but to come together and to say, we're going to carry this kind of weight for each other.
Yes. I mean, literally, the definition of equally yoked is joint with the same. You know, and as he mentioned with the oxen, if you join two oxen together, then they need to be basically in the same order to work together. If not, they're not going to accomplish the goal of actually farming the land. And, you know, when we look at, I would say, farming the land in terms of marriage, it means how are you cultivating and growing your marriage over time together. I mean, like for us, when we did our marriage counseling together, we, you know, sat down and had those tough conversations about finances, you know, about how do we, you know, want our kids to eventually be grown up as. It's like, I think in today, a lot of people are afraid of having those tough conversations versus us. Like me and my wife, we just keep it open and honest, you know, because at the end of the day, if we're going to be together to death do us part, there's no need to sugarcoat stuff. And it's having those tough conversations and being able to push through them and figuring out a plan.
So Dora, what do you think goes into having a successful marriage?
Well, I've never been married, so I don't really have too much insight on that part. I can just tell you what I guess my opinion of it is basically what you're asking me. But I think it has a lot to do with balance. I think it's important for two people to be completely vulnerable and open about what they want, how they want it, and find somebody that agrees to that. And if you can find somebody that agrees to that and they balance you out and you can maintain that balance and grow it, then I think that's what marriage should be, or what it's like.
So, Fahim, you're pretty much turned off from the idea of marriage, and based on what's going on now, and I want to understand why.
I'm turned on or off?
Oh, Fahim's turned off from it, and I just want to understand why.
I mean, more or less, from my particular perspective, at this point, I don't see what the benefit would be to myself in that particular aspect. At first, I wanted to have, of course, a family, 2 kids, house, and all of those type of things. But there's a lot of conflicting factors that go into me getting to this conclusion. Number one, just looking at it from a statistical perspective, it's not looking too good, especially for African Americans in general. If we look at statistics over the past couple of years, we see the rate or the incidence of unmarried individuals going up over and over. We also see that there's a lack in education in Black males in general. That's also causing this type of separation because we are starting to see more African American women getting degrees. But that's not necessarily the point that I want to bring home. What I want to bring home is at this point in time, it's not really a good financial move for someone to get married how it's constructed in these type of times. If we look at it, when you get married, you're bringing in a threesome, more or less. You have the government, you have your wife, and you have yourself. When you have any type of contract where one person can benefit by breaking that contract, then that contract is worthless at the end of the day. If all somebody has to do is marry somebody for 7 years, have their kid, and then leave and take half of this other person's stuff, then that's not necessarily something I want to be a part of. If it was a biblical marriage, how they describe it in the Bible, how I grew up, how I saw my parents follow marriage, then of course I would be all for that. But I've dated a lot, as you've known. I've been with a lot of different women I thought I could see myself marrying. And I tried really hard in those relationships, and it never turned out in a way that I thought would be sustainable. And just having that background with that many different failures in relationship, as well as going forward with me believing as though it's going to get worse over time, I just don't see it as it's something that's optional, more or less. That's what I'm getting at.
So this is a question for everyone here. Y'all feel like your past partners or current partners or whomever is supportive? Starting with you, Dora, do you feel like your past partners were supportive of you?
They were. To a certain extent, how they were supportive as much as I allowed them to be.
Elaborate on that.
That way. Because sometimes I feel like when you're trying to accomplish things, you're so focused that you don't have time to tell people what you're doing and, you know, let them know what your goals are, because you're doing them. I'm the type of person where I just do them, and then I give you a finished product rather than tell you I'm taking these steps. So you don't really get a chance to support me because I'm just gonna be on my shit. I'm just gonna do it. So that's what I mean by that. But if I tell you about certain things, I'm asking for your support.
Okay, you kind of have a similar ideology that I am. Herb, what about you?
You said, so your original question was, do you feel as if your current partner, in this case my wife, supports me?
Or past partners, do you feel like they're supportive, or i.e. current partners?
Okay, I mean, so for me, I've been with my wife from dating, engagement to marriage about 2021, going on about 7 years now. For me, I would say yes. But the reason I would say that is it kind of goes back to that like being aligned in what you're trying to do, right? So even from when I first met her to when we got engaged, and even now till we married, one thing that we did is, you know, we always outline what do we want our future to look like, right? Because if I'm building with you, if I'm making you my wife, my goal is I'm not trying to get divorced. I'm trying to go into the day I die. So for me, it's like, if we plan to be together that long, there has to be some form of alignment into what is our ultimate goal that we're trying to reach in life. What are we working towards? What are we striving towards together? Because the thing about this is, you can have your plan and she can have her completely other plan. If those two plans in life don't align and we both can't grow separately but togetherly at the same time, to me personally, it's not going to work, because you're going to be pulling at two opposite ends. So for instance, if you want to say, for instance, you know, invest long term and build this massive portfolio, and they're just like, well, I just want to spend money and take it day by day, you're pulling in two opposite directions. So one thing that we did, I mean, answer over our question, yes, she supported me and empowered me in everything we do. But one thing that we do every year is sit down in December and kind of write out, okay, we have our 10, 20, 30 year goals. How are our yearly goals building into actually reaching that? And then we have kind of like quarterly reviews to figure out, okay, how are we tracking towards that? So for me, I can say my wife supports me 100% because we're both building and working towards the same outcomes. But they're not financial outcomes, they're spiritual outcomes, they're fitness and health outcomes. their financial outcomes. It's like we operate as a unit, and we continue to work towards what we set out and what we plan. So to answer your question, I'm supported 100%.
What about you, Jarvis? You feel like your past partners or current partners are supportive?
Probably more than I was. Like, listening to what Herb said, I was reviewing like my past relationships, and I was like, am I the toxic one? Like, because like there have been times my partners were there, like they were wanting to move in with me, and I'm just like, nah, and distract them from the question and go back to talking about something else or doing something else, and then just never bring it up anymore, and then maybe I might ghost them sooner or later, and then I'm like, that was kind of toxic. They were trying to actually do something. Yeah, kind of. And so like,
no, that wasn't toxic. You know, you just knew you didn't want that energy around you, so you said no.
He didn't say no. He sounded like he deflected and then ghosted.
Well, I mean, that's his mechanism for not answering that. Like, he can't just say no. He deflects. But the reasoning behind it, I feel like behind it, he knew, like, I know this energy is not what I need around me.
Yeah, and he should say that.
We know Jarvis. We've known Jarvis for like 15 years. Like,
I can't even say that much, because like some of the people were good people, and like I was just like, nah, I don't wanna move in, and so I was just like, I would tell them no, then they would kind of apply a little bit more pressure, and I would say no again, and then I would kind of go ghost, because it's like you're not listening. You're not understanding that I don't want to do it. It's not like it's not that I don't want to grow with you. It's just that, hey, I might need some more time, but you're not listening to that, even if I say no. So it's like, all right.
Yeah, that trying to rush and pressure you.
Yeah, there was probably a lot of support there, but just not from my end.
What about you, Fahim? Like, you feel like your past partners are supportive?
Nah.
None of them?
Nah. After, so the reason is because of how...
I'll argue one. I get why you could say no, but I'll argue that one.
All right, let me finish it. So the reason I say no is because the type of relationships I started getting into after a certain point became very superficial. Right. So we would both try in my initial relationships. When I first met you, I was saying that I was, saving myself to marriage and all of that. I really had a strong foundation in the Christian faith and then trying to make an actual family. So I tried extremely hard. When I saw that wasn't something that a lot of people were looking for, that's when I started delving into superficial relationships. And when you're in those type of relationships, you don't really care about building with the other person. It's if we're physically attracted to each other, we're going to continue dating or doing whatever we're doing. That's why I'm saying no, because I wasn't looking for those type of relationships where I would require support afterwards. So that's why I'm getting to that answer.
That's solid. What could I say? I'll say more or less no. There's one, Florida, Jill. Shout out to Jill. I'll say her, she's very supportive. But I think even with her, it's hard to be supportive of anybody when your shit's not together.
That's true.
And I'll say that for any,
you can support anybody from across the country if you wanted to. That's not true. If you really want to support somebody, you'll make it happen.
I'm not saying as far as like the distance. I'm talking about if your ducks in a row, it's like Malcolm X said, how can you help, if we can't help ourselves, how can you help somebody else?
Well, yeah. Well, that's not on that person then, because they should know better if they have to help themselves. We're all adults.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's just that, like, I'll say that part, like, but overall, I'll say no, especially when I started like this whole word of mouth branding thing. I don't think I've gotten much support out of it at all. Like,
I'm proud of you, by the way, Black man. I just want to say that. It actually saddens me that a lot of brothers say no to that. but that's what's kind of the consensus. Majority of them don't have that support from our Black women. And you know me, you follow me, I talk about it all the time. I don't like it. We should be more supportive of our Black men, but
I wouldn't even say it's just Black men. I think it's just an American woman thing, just as far as like have dated so many women or been in contact with so many women because of the military and all that. I think everybody works in a process of self-interest. So I think people in general, at least in America, look at what that person can do to benefit me and never look beyond that.
Yeah.
And like,
That's what it's supposed to be, though.
You know what I'm saying? But I think that's the problem. Like, you shouldn't just look at how somebody benefits you. Like, you should look at what they want to do for themselves as well. Like, we'll use Fahim we'll use Herb. He's already married as process.
Like, that person's a whole human being. They're a whole person, and you're just treating them like a cash machine, like a transaction.
Yeah, they're objectifying them. And I think that's like, we'll use Herb as an example. You know, you got the consulting business, you graduated with your undergrad. I'm not sure if you have your master's or not. But you know, you're moving in that general consensus. So you've been dating your wife for 7 years. So like y'all know each other like the back of each other's hands. You're still learning and growing and learning each other. But say somebody like Fahim, who's working on his PhD in materials engineering, he can't tell a woman that off top, because if he tells a woman that off top, the first thing she's gonna think is the financial gain. Then he's actually a very gentlemanly person when he's in a relationship, so then they look at that as taken advantage of. We'll use me as an example. I'm 6'4". There's always this stereotype of having this tall guy around, so that's automatically an objectifying thing, especially when it comes to like, if you want to think about it like in a biological standpoint of like, I'm a protective or whatever other nonsense people come up to their mind. On top of other things I'm working on, they look at all that as like a financial gain, not realizing all the things that took me to get to this point and all the things that will take me to move forward. And they just want to be there for the
benefits, for the perks.
Drake pretty much said it best. They just want to be there. They weren't there shooting with me in the gym. And I think that's the biggest issue in relationships in totality. Just for example, and I hate to put it on women, but I think it's just more so women who just kind of use people in that regard and move forward. Just from examples of in the past, like even past videos we've done, where like a guy, when I was living in Atlanta, his girl was going to school and he was working full time. Like he was working a bunch of hours to get her through school. She met a guy in college or dental school, wherever they were at. Something dude kicked him out and had to find, and he was pretty much left out on his own. We talked about that one story about the guy who was helping his wife through law school. Now she divorces him. He has to split all her debt, and now he has to make himself way through school. And I think that's a big problem. I think people use people as a means to an end. And
women are evil. Women are not good people.
I mean, it makes sense from a biological standpoint. The reason that dudes have a self-sacrificial role is because they are not needed to continue the population, right? Women are generally more apt to do that because when they are gathering resources is to propagate their line or more or less take care of their children. That's why you see this type of selfish behavior. A lot of the time it's subconscious, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. I don't even think marriage is a natural thing. It's a relatively new invention, to be honest with you.
But I think that's debatable because our grandparents didn't move like that or something like that.
That was 2 generations ago. If we look at it all the way back, marriage was not something. So marriage was initially for property rights, my boy. The majority of males did not have offspring back in the day. This is relatively new, but that's just me being a conspiracy theorist, bro. I done gave up so long ago that I just started reading into the history of it. So don't worry about me.
If you live together, you're married. A piece of paper does not change.
Oh no,
that shouldn't mean anything.
No.
Try to talk to the government about that. It's completely different.
That paper
you can
changes.
Leave the house. Everything.
Paper changes. That paper changes a lot. Like I say,
from a man's person, that paper changes a hell of a lot.
Like I say, for me, right? For me, I was a big advocate of living with your significant other before you got married. That was just personally me. I had my own reasons. My thoughts were.
No, you definitely should.
Yeah, I mean, sign lease where you guys can't leave and figure it out. But even with us living together for about 2.5 years and then just signing that paper, it changes everything more so from a psychological and responsibility standpoint. Because up until you sign that paper, it's like you can always have that key to walk out, right? But once you sign that paper, you have to think very hard and long whether or not you want to walk out, because there's a lot of financial implications involved. Even on top of the fact you start factoring kids into that equation, it's like,
Like, just no offense to her, but from a woman's perspective, like being married is kind of like a come up for the most part. Even like,
I think that's why I say what I say, because I don't view it that way. I don't see it as a come up. I wasn't raised like that.
I mean,
I actually value a man.
I'm saying from a logistical standpoint, even if, like, let's say you got a guy who's making, what's the average? What do people make an average a year? It's like 40,000. Even if he makes 40,000 and you have a kid, you're in child support. You're pretty much entitled to about 10 of that, probably more.
But I know some states they're entitled to 25% before tax. I've seen it.
Yep.
I had a colleague who was on child support, and he was like, gross pay was about $2,500, and then after child support, because child support taxes you pre-tax.
Yep.
So that's 25% coming out before government even hits you with their taxes. His pay stub after 80-hour bi-weekly work week said $500 and some change. I was like, wow. Because the other part of that, factor into is if you work, there's a good chance the judge is going to make you float family health insurance. So, but I mean, for me, like, I went into my marriage, I didn't sign a prenup or anything like that. I mean, I just, went in there with the risk.
Make a difference at this point in a lot of cases, because after a certain amount of time, they're like null and void. Like, hell, I know if you're in the military for 10 years, and you're married and y'all get divorced, she's automatically entitled to half. Automatic. But unless she cheats or something like that, and I think even in some cases, if she cheats, she's entitled to half, like, immediate.
Yeah, I mean, no fault. Most states have no fault marriage, so I mean that doesn't even apply. But like for me, I don't. At the end of the day, no matter what
we had different rules and laws. Like whatever y'all do on the outside is fine, but she is entitled to half if y'all been married for 10 years or more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, so I can't really speak from you guys' perspective, because I met my wife when we were in college and we both didn't have anything, versus now, I'm an engineer and she's a pharmacist. So, we both met each other when we were just regular college students, broke and just getting to have, like, remember back then, spending $10, it was like spending damn near $300 back in college. But we both grew up. It's like we met each other when we didn't have anything. Like now, I don't know what it would be like out here dating now, working, as a engineer, making money. I don't know.
Y'all went through growing pains. And
it's trash out here. It's trash out here. You stay right where you at.
I mean, yeah, for me, it's like we went through all of our growing pains when we didn't have anything.
Y'all became adults. So it's what I guess all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, dreamed of. Like, we all had college sweethearts. I don't even go into high school sweethearts. So we had college sweethearts that we really thought, shit, this is the motherfucker I'm about to spend the rest of my life with. Whether you want to believe it or not, you may not have lived in the same house or dorm. You essentially woke up to that person every day, knowing you were going to see them somewhere every day. You're going to have some type of, like, you would see them with the messy hair bonnet, or I just woke up out of bed, or I was sick, or I just did this, or I had a rough night. Like, when you were in college, especially at an HBCU, you grew up with the people around you. Like Herb, you kind of like a little brother to me. Them two are like my siblings, like regular brothers for me, because we just all grew up together. Like, we see each other on the best days, on our worst days, the embarrassing days, you know, all the other stuff. Like, hell, I still remember these two jokers lost their virginity.
All right, bro. This ain't a type of shit. No.
I'm just
There are
saying, like, I
guests,
just
there are
remember
guests.
stuff like that. Like,
I am the
Like, I
Yeah,
guest.
bro. Exactly,
Like, I
bro.
remember,
You out here
like-
wilding, bro. Oh, I
I mean,
remember on August 3rd. Like, fuck out of here, dog. Like,
I,
chill, bro.
I can remember
Hey.
they can tell you about me obsessing over a girl that I just never got. I
mean-
can remember all that. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know what I'm
Ultimately,
saying? Like,
yeah.
that having somebody to grow up with is so, like, I can say it's like, cause I met my wife 2020, late 2019. We got married in 2020, and it's completely different than marrying or being with somebody you kind of grew up with. Cause you got to kind of like teach them all
You're
that
still
type of
learning. You're
stuff.
still learning her.
Exactly, and it's
and I
like,
mean,
it's
you know-
completely different.
you know, it's interesting. I actually heard, you know, this one guy say this. I don't know if I was listening to a podcast or reading an article where he's like, he's been with his wife for 50 years, but he has dated 7 different women during that 50-year time span, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
At the end of the day, we're all going to change, right? The person I am today is not going to be the person I am 5 years ago. The person my wife is today is just not going to be the person she is 5 years ago. So it kind of boils back to, I think today and age, a lot of people is like, they're not, like, the first sign or difficulty, they run. And they don't realize that it requires a lot of work and sacrifice. And I think,
define different. So some stuff is just ignorant.
yeah, I mean, again, it's, you may see some wild
I'll
stuff.
give you an example. Let's say you made 120,000
Mm-hmm.
a year. That's what you make. Your wife spends 92,000 of it. Is that difficulty, or is that just some plain ignorance?
That's just
I mean,
hardest level
90
of difficulty, bro.
I-
You just started on expert mode instead of medium, dog. You gotta fight through.
Exactly. What is that? What is,
I mean,
that's
Jesus
what is-
Christ. Somebody got to feel some hands on something like that, bro.
yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, I think that's just things that you know you both gotta work out.
Yeah, that's an
exactly.
unlockable character type shit right there, bro.
I mean,
You
120.
gotta put the.
Are you talking about 120 after taxes or before taxes?
Does it matter?
No.
I mean that 98. That
Hey, at least it wasn't 100 though. It wasn't a full 6 figures, so you can respect her for that.
I mean,
All right.
I get it, but again, those are things that you both have to work out and try to find a resolution. I think that
See if somebody can work that out.
that's when you bring in outside help, or you both need to probably go to marriage counseling or both go to therapy. I mean, I'm an advocate for
Yeah, I'll do
marriage
a threesome.
counseling, therapy. A threesome will lead to a 18-year payment plan.
So, Jarvis, Dora, because we
Jesus
already know
Christ, bro. Hella wild, bro.
y'all made, if y'all made 120,000 a year and somebody said 92 of it,
Well,
Who's
well
somebody?
her
Who's the somebody though?
well, if your husband and your
Like I'm with Herb on this one. Like you like
Ain't no counseling
is
for
it?
that.
you gotta
well, the
you gotta-
first
you
part
gotta
is,
work that out somehow. Like you.
well, the first
You
part
gotta-
is, how did
How
you
did it get
let
to the
them
point?
get to that point? 'Cause it's-
How they get access to all of it? Is my first question.
I mean, you're married.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Dora.
They
So
got
just
access.
Dora, just an FYI, if you're married, your husband can go take a car out in your name, and you can't do
Yeah, I
anything
know that.
about
I
it.
mean, I know that. I'm just being funny.
Bank
It
accounts.
doesn't mean like they spent it like let's say there's like, I don't know, like shopping, eating out, buying video games,
So
buying a
spending.
car.
So they're just spending it.
Sounds
But-
like 92,000 to me, bro.
I mean,
Sounds like a couple hundred.
So the question is, so like the first red flag, I think to me would be right.
is he cooking and cleaning and stuff? Is the house
You know,
taken care of?
Nah, bro. Ain't no way.
I'm
Nah. You can get a maid. You can get a maid for $30K a year. That's what you talking about.
I'm just saying this is stuff that I've seen in the military where like you was going to get deployed and they clean your mouth.
I could never do that. I'm sorry, but I would ask my husband like, what is my limit? And then I'm gonna try my best to not even touch my limit.
So Denzel, I think in that case, I mean, we may be talking in extreme terms. For me, though, I think it's like when you have issues like
let's
that.
talk something simple. Cheating.
Huh?
Cheating. Something simple.
Oh well, I mean, me personally, hey, that happens. You might as well just go visit that house.
90,000 on eating though.
You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's limit is different. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's cutoff point is different. Cause think about it. Like like we'll use Doris. She's the woman in the group. You dated an NBA player. Do you expect that NBA player to be faithful 365?
Do I expect him? Realistically, no. I don't expect him to. I would like him to tell me like how far he plans on going, so I can like, you know, at least be aware. But I already know it's going to happen. Just don't let me find out. I don't want to know.
What?
Okay, that's an outlandish thing. Now, what NBA players like? That's like a very small percentage of people. Let's go with well-off businessman, like, or a doctor. We'll go with a doctor. That's a little more common. He makes 6 figures, but he travels. He does meetings. Do you expect him to be completely faithful?
If he tells me he's going to be, then yes. But I know men.
Sweet summer child.
I mean, I would expect him to be, but if something were to happen, I guess it kind of depends on the circumstances.
Like it was just like a conference. You saw one bad chick. She was going.
And that's just it. He's just out there just slanging it.
Not slinging it everywhere, but you get what I'm saying. Like it just happened to be that one. Like let's say she looked like you. Like she was very similar to you.
Then why would he?
Period.
I think we're starting to.
Yeah, because you're just
like very.
You're just making up hypotheticals that make
like
no
hypothetical.
sense, bro.
I think we're digging too deep.
Hypothetically, she shoots you in the morning. Are you divorcing by the evening? Like, bro.
I'm just saying. But my point behind all this is everybody has a different limit on what sets them off.
Yeah.
But I thought what we were talking about. Yeah, but originally what we were talking about is that nobody wants to work in a relationship. That's how we got off on this tangent.
I think
what you're talking about now has nothing to do with working. This is just like seeing events that anybody would divorce over, bro.
But what I'm saying,
you can't work through that.
What I'm saying, her got to work through marriage. These are different things people work with. Like somebody.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's give them more.
So let's start. So
doesn't bother me.
Let's just start.
I think one of the things,
like in a relatable way. Bro.
I think one of the things that you have to do, and this is very important, is setting expectations up front. So if you don't tell her she ain't got no spending limit and she run up $100K on your card, you can't complain because you never set the expectation for what I expect to see. Vice versa. If you let it be known up front.
That's false. If you ain't got $100K in your bank, why are you spending my money?
Listen, I'm gonna just let you know.
There now.
Listen, I'm gonna let you know.
It's starting to get personal, bro.
I'm gonna
let you know.
It's a real scar you going through right now.
So key word to what you just said was minds. And what you have to realize is when you're in marriage,
it's not yours anymore.
That mind conversation becomes that it's about what are we bringing into this house as a unit and how are we dispersing it out? And a lot, like, that's why finances get caught up, because it's like, okay, I'm bringing in X, Y, and Z, and you're bringing in X, Y, and Z. Well, I feel like I should spend this. And that's where you start to have issues. When you're coming into this, it's like, okay, this is not mine. It now becomes ours because legally It is ours. If something happens, that account's getting split right down the middle.
Well, okay, Herb,
It depends, bro.
Let me put it.
If you had to count beforehand, it doesn't get split unless you do contributions while you're married.
Because the difference is this, right? Say for instance, you bring home $100,000, but she's a stay-at-home mom.
What I'm saying, you bring home 100,000, she brings home 50.
I mean, y'all brought together 150.
Okay, yeah, together y'all have 150 to spend.
Yeah, the way the government sees it, it doesn't matter how much you bring in. The way the government sees it is that y'all brought in collectively 100.
Okay, so let's say, he brings in 100, she brings in 50, but she spends 107.
That's up to y'all.
Okay?
That is up to y'all to work out, because for some guys, their basics.
That's not common sense. We're gonna say that's not common sense. Like you don't have to pay no bills. You live in.
Listen.
I understand what you're saying, but when you bring the government into it, that's exactly what it is. They can do what they want, man. In that particular case,
this is it, right? This is it, right? Denzel, right? For me, I've always been the type of person, I operate off reality. The reality of the situation is the government's in your marriage. If you want to be married in the United States of America, the government is in your marriage. So you just got to accept that. However, when it comes to finances, when you come in here and saying the words I and my, you are already setting yourself up for failure. The reason being is you bring in 100,000, she brings in 50,000. For me, I personally, how I manage my finances, I look at that as, okay, we both have 150 and go from there, right? Because if you start breaking
what I'm saying is, as a partner, the partner should be considered as the fact that you didn't go out and earn that money.
But Denzel, what you're also failing to realize, right? Say you have kids, right? So let's go off of this scenario here. Say that person is only making 50,000 a year because they're working part-time to take care of your kids. Or say you're bringing in $100,000 a year and they're a complete stay-at-home mom. You wouldn't be able to bring in your $100,000 clean if she wasn't doing her job at home of preventing daycare, making sure meals and things like that isn't cooked and your current quality of life is maintained. Again, and for some people, this is why I say relationships are different, right?
I'm not
because
saying,
say for
now you're getting,
no. Hold on.
You're talking about all of this. So I'm talking about clean out just wasting the money.
Okay, but Denzel, again, what was the expectation that you set up front, right? Because this is the thing, right? Some guys are literally happy just coming home to a cooked meal and don't give a damn what she blows. As long as I put money in the investment account, savings is there. If after what we decide in savings and investment is 40,000 and you left with 110,000 to blow, as long as I got a hot meal in front of my plate, go do what the hell you want with that 110. And that's just how some people are, but it's up to you guys. It's not inconsiderate if you both got together and set up a plan to do that. Now, if there was no plan ever set or no expectation set up front, you cannot complain that they did X, Y, and Z because you never set the expectation.
I think you're both right on your parts. He's just saying, like, even if they did set an expectation, her as a person going over or spending crazy, she's not being considerate.
I mean, you can't say that, but to me personally, what
you're doing right now is putting all the earnings on one person.
I mean, you are, but then again, it's about, okay.
So what if it's the other way around? Dora makes 100,000, he makes 50, and he spends 80,000. Now who's responsible?
If Dora is fine accepting that 80, then it's none of our business because that's not our marriage and that's not what goes on in that union. However, if Dora
contradiction you said earlier,
what's the contradiction? I kept it same the whole time.
Before you said you didn't set an expectation. Now you're saying and she's okay with it. She's okay with it.
But that's setting the expectations. If Dora never set the expectations, we need to come have a conversation. Like, hey, big fella, you spent 80,000. We got a problem.
You know your limit is 20.
But if the expectation was never set, and okay, why do we do that? That's why the number one thing that's covered in most marriage counseling classes is setting up finances, because it's the number one cause next to cheating. But that's just, like I say, you have to, if if you bring it, because like I say, you could come from one financial background of how you saw your family run it, and they could come from another side. I don't consider it being inconsiderate. It's just like, what was your two experience managing finances? And for some people coming into marriage, you get in situations where some people have never had to worry about managing finances. That daddy had an open credit card or mommy had an open credit card. I literally met a girl last week where she had her high school graduations. Huh? I went to, it was one of our family members who had a graduation party and she wanted to be an engineer.
Bro, I'm playing.
Okay, her dad just gave her a credit card. And what did her daughter do? She, for the past like 6 months, she's been blowing like $4K a month on her dad's credit card. And he's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have told her this. You know, I'm putting her on a budget. But if you two never came into that marriage with the expectations of what finances look like, you can't complain. And the other side to that is, if you did set the expectations where you're like, okay, babe, you can go spend whatever you want after I get savings and investing, and he or she then goes and blows all that money, you were the one who agreed to that. So you can't get mad at the outcome you get. So there's 3 points here. One, if you never set an expectation up front, you can't complain about the situation you're in. At that point, you need to sit down together, go revisit, go look at some things. Option 2, some people set the expectation and say, oh, here you go, babe, go do whatever you want. I just want a hot meal. And they're gonna go blow 100,000, even though you break that, that's fine. Because some people are genuinely just happy seeing their wives do that, and that's them. And then expectation 3 is you set the expectation, but now you're seeing the results of the expectation you set. It's like, oh no, I can't agree with this. You know, it's basically, you set the expectations up front, you save yourself a lot on the back end. Because then if you go and renege on that, we have a much bigger problem at that. And
so
again,
what if you have these expectations? Or let's say, well, Herb, it's hard for you to really relate to this, but I'm sure the rest of us can. Where you were in a relationship or whatever, and the person talked about other things they've done for that past person. Like, let's say, I don't know, let's say the person said they rubbed the other person's feet every single night.
mm-hmm.
That's what they did for that person every single night. So in your mind, that's an expectation. Is that okay to accept that as an expectation, or are you asking too much of them? Because they're basically, from my perspective, they're basically telling you what they will do for you in a relationship.
They're not. They're telling you what you did for somebody else before. Decouple.
Yeah, and why are you telling me? I hate when people say, like, I don't want to know what you did for the person before me. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, that's all been erased. We are starting whatever we're doing.
Yeah, decouple the two. Because at the end of the day, what she did for him and what she did for him may be completely different what she did from you. One thing I will say is, for some people, if you are in relationships and you have baggage that you didn't heal from, don't bring it into another relationship. Go get therapy. Go get that sorted out before you bring it back into, because whatever you didn't resolve in a previous relationship, it's going to affect the current relationship, and you're going to probably get the same outcome that you got before. But like, if you're telling me you did this stuff, I don't want to hear it. Like, for me, I'll just shut it down from the jump. I'm not trying to hear that shit. Because what it starts to you is, well, you did this for such and so, and he was a fuck boy. Excuse my language. I forgot we're recording this.
It don't matter.
You know, they're whatever. You know, I'm Mr. Nice Guy. I did this. Why can't you do it for me? When you start setting expectations and for what you did previously, and it doesn't get fulfilled, you have an issue. Do things different. I'm pretty sure for all of us as guys. I mean, Denzel, shoot, you remember my previous relationship before I met my wife. You know, you just.
I don't think I missed 2015. Like, I remember Fahim telling me stories. Like, I remember that.
Yeah, Fahim knew how bad it was.
Yeah, it was rough, man.
But at the end of the day, it's like, if they say it, that's cool, but decouple. Gotta decouple.
Well, on that note, I think we had a good talk. You know, it's been like, I think, over an hour, and I appreciate everybody for coming out. Fahim, you want to end this on this note, or should I do it?
What you gotta do, man? It's your
All
channel,
right,
my boy.
like, subscribe to the channel. Peace.
Thank you for your support. We appreciate you tuning in weekly for our daily updates, talking relationship goals, etc., etc. Y'all know the deal. Continue to look in and like, subscribe. Make sure to tell us what you want to see in the next videos or things we should talk about. But now available on our website, Top Dog Get Fought For t-shirts. Just click on the word of mouth link in our description, click on shop, scroll down to apparel, then click on learn more. This is where you can find all our word of mouth gear. And this is word of mouth. Peace.
Mm.